Hello, my name is Lincoln and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about my September wrap up. So it's my favorite time of the year, October, and this is, in my opinion, the best time of the year, hands down. The only downside is it's not always warm. I like the warmth, but yeah, so September ended and I read some really good books, and I want to talk about them. So in the month of September, I read 19 books. 13 of them were audiobooks, 5 of them were physical, 1 of them was an ebook, and I only DNF'd 1 book this month. I feel like each month I have to DNF at least 1. Not on purpose, not me forcing myself to, but it just seems that way. There's always just one book that I'm just like, this isn't worth it. For my star ratings, I gave 4 books 5 stars. I gave 10 books 4 stars. I gave 4 books 3 stars, and I gave 1 book 2 stars. So compared to August, when I only read 1 5-star book, I say this is a big improvement over the month of August, so I'm not gonna complain. This month, I also started doing some solo book reviews to where I could hopefully help myself in these wrap-ups, not make these wrap-ups so long, because I wanna talk about all these books. So I didn't review every single one by itself, but I reviewed a few as I read them, and so I'll let you know if I have more in-depth thoughts in another video. So we'll start at the bottom. The book I DNF'd was The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffinger. I read this book, or attempted to read this book for my 2000s Decade Readathon, which I have a reading vlog for. And in that reading vlog, I talk about why I DNF'd it, which is I got bored. This book is 17 hours long, and I loved the movie. I haven't watched it in a while, but I remember really enjoying the movie when I did. And it's just, when you have 17 hours of this book, it literally felt like we were living day to day with these people, which in sometimes would be exciting, but in a normal, mundane setting, it's not. Even though like we're jumbled in, this guy's a time traveler, it's not that exciting. Moving on to the book I gave 2 stars, and that is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. So this was one of my 2 Peas in a Pod book club picks. It's mine and Walter's book club, and we have a hour-long discussion about this book and our thoughts on it. If you want to see that, it's very in-depth. We kind of go off on a lot of ramblings at some point, but overall, I think it's a good discussion. My main issue with this book was it just lost my interest towards the end. So I don't think I'm going to be picking up the next one. Moving on to the 3 stars. The first one is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. This is a debut fantasy novel, and I enjoyed this. I made a review on it, a solo review to kind of talk about my feelings. So like watch that if you want, but also what I would say to watch, if you're willing to watch an hour-long discussion of it, is the Black Cotties book club live show that they did about it, which I feel like that expanded on my views and like my things I couldn't put into words in my review so much better. And it explains exactly all the grievances I had with it and also all the things I enjoyed about the book with it. So, yeah, definitely go check that out. Loved Malik, and I loved the premise, and I'm so excited for the second one to kind of see where it goes, because it can go anywhere. Sky's the limit. But, yeah, I didn't give it more than 3 stars because half of the book was in a POV that I didn't necessarily love. And also, there were just some things that, like, as a debut author, some things probably weren't handled the best way and stuff like that. So, yeah. but I definitely suggest checking it out. The next one is Romanoff by Nadine Brands. So in this book, we follow the Romanoff family, but there's a little bit of magic in it and all that stuff. And this was fine. So sometimes my 3-star ratings are all over the place. Sometimes it's a meh book that is like good and I enjoyed it, but it's not that impressive. And then there's other times where it's like a good book and I would recommend it, but like just compared to the other books I've rated 4 and 5 stars, I can't give it that. So A Song of Wraiths and Ruins it's a good book and I recommend it. And then this one is the meh. I'm already forgetting a lot of what happened. I enjoyed it at the time, but apparently it's not sticking with me. The next 3-star book is Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. I did a review on this one as well. Again, meh. I do plan on continuing the series sometime because I have a lot of hope and potential for that series that it will get better because this first book felt a whole lot like setup. The last 3-star book is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. I read this book for my 2000s Decade Readathon and I enjoyed it, but I prefer the TV show over this book. I feel like I'm probably going to continue the series in the book just to see all the changes and stuff because it's the same. Like the TV show does a good job with keeping up with what actually happens, but like it also is changing things. It's a little jumbled, but I definitely feel like the premise does better on the big screen than in book form. So moving on to the 4 stars, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the Uglies and Pretties by Scott Westerfeld. So I read 3 Scott Westerfelds this month and I liked these a whole lot more. And I just filmed a review for those because I finished the last book as well. So I finished the trilogy and so I did a review for those as well. I don't know when that's going up. It may not even go up at all because it's a hot mess, but that's what my emotions are. I enjoyed this series, but it's also a hot mess of a series. The next 4-star book is Confessions of a Shopaholic by Sophie Kinsella. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this book. I feel like the character is me, and not in the good way. I was I felt my cheeks burning so many different times in this book because I could see that she was doing something stupid, but in my head, I'd be like, that's exactly what you would be doing. Like, talking to myself. And it's just like so glaringly obvious that the things she's doing are destructive and not helpful. I don't know. But yeah, I feel like she's me. And then I looked up and there's like 20 other books in this series. So maybe I'll continue it. The next book is Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this with Walter for our 2 Peas in a Pod book club. So we have a whole discussion about this book as well. I picked this one for our anniversary, which was really sad because we were both crying and thinking about the other person dying on our anniversary. Romantic. But I enjoyed this book. I liked the conversations around grief. I appreciated that there wasn't no this is how you're supposed to grieve. This is what you're supposed to do. This is how long it's supposed to take. Blah, 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 blah. It felt very like this is her story. And I just liked that. And even though I didn't enjoy the sad parts, I appreciated it. And I'm glad this book exists. But yeah, I was crying a whole lot during this because all I could think about was if I was her and my husband died. The next 4-star book is Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo Mbue. I can't wrap my head around my thoughts about this book. We're following this man who is trying to achieve the American dream and become an American citizen and get his papers and all this stuff so he can have this amazing life for his family. And it's not going according to plan. And I adored the ending. Like, just him finally accepting himself and not thinking of himself as a failure, because this American dream is not achievable. Americans tell other people all the time we're the greatest country in the world. And living here is the American dream. Everyone achieves the American dream. Everyone has a 4-bedroom house with a white picket fence and a golden retriever and all this stuff. And you can live on one income and all this stuff. But it's not achievable. And this book talks about that in a very real and personal way, because you can say that all the days. Like, the American dream is a lie. That's not possible anymore. And a lot of people make it hard for immigrants to do that. But they don't find out until they're here. I loved it. And also the narrator for this book, he narrated Tristan Strong Punches a Hole in the Sky. I could listen to his voice all day. Oh my goodness. So engaging and relaxing and just, So if you know who that narrator is and you know more books that he's narrated, please let me know, because I want to read them or listen to them. The next 4-star book was The Fire Chronicle by John Stevens. This is the second book in the Books of Beginning series, which is a middle grade fantasy that I adore, and I can't wait to read the final one. I'm nervous, but I'm also excited. So yeah, I can't really get too much into this book without giving spoilers for the first one, but basically the whole premise is you got 3 orphans. They have parents, but their parents are gone, and they need to find these books of beginnings to save the universe and defeat this big bad. Very simple, but also very complex, and these are the most real siblings I've ever read about. Like, they feel like a legit family, and they feel like actual kids. The next 4-star book I read was It's Not What It Looks Like by Molly Burke. This is an Audible original that I've had for a while, and I'm trying to get through all my Audible books so I can delete the app. But I picked this one up, and I enjoy Molly Burke's content on YouTube. I enjoyed this book. It wasn't too different than her content. Like, if you watch a lot of her content, you know her story, but it was still interesting and fun to listen to her tell her story of how she's gotten to where she's gotten. And also when she talked about her first dog, Gypsy, cried. It was just really fun and really short, so it wasn't bad at all. The next 4-star book I read was White Rage by Carol Anderson. And this book took me 2 months to read, but I'm so glad I finally finished it. And I already know I'm going to have to reread it. I annotated a little bit, but I know I missed a whole lot, so I want to annotate it again. But it does read like a textbook. It's not engaging in a sense that it's a page turner. It's engaging and informative and eye-opening in the information it has, but it did to me read like a textbook. And it was also very easy to get frustrated, not with the book, but with the things it talked about, when literally there's these blatant racist things that white people have done. And we've built this system to benefit those angry, racist white people's emotions and thoughts. Hopefully, this won't be the way it is forever. And we will be able to overturn those rules and not glorify and no longer glorify these people who put these racist policies in place just to benefit themselves. The next book that I read was All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And I loved this so much. It was so good, and it was so interesting to read. Even though I am not a young Black queer person, I still related to some of the things, and especially when he talked about trauma and childhood trauma and waking up and realizing that years later, oh, that was trauma, and me going through that and experiencing that and nothing being done about it has affected all these other things in my life, and it's the reason that I do these things. And just like seeing his journey and him growing up and all this stuff, I don't know. I don't know how to describe how this book made me feel, but like I'm so glad I read it, and I'm also so glad that I own it now. And it has given me tools to kind of explain to some of the people in my life that don't understand what being queer is. And it also taught me things about intersectionality and just being in multiple minority groups and what that means. And then the last book that was 4 stars for me for this month was This Is My America by Kim Johnson. I love this book and definitely recommend it. The only reason it's not a 5-star is because I would have loved to have seen her combine forces with Innocent X, and instead of going off on her own to prove that her brother and father are innocent, you know, I would have loved for her to have combined forces, and we see more of that legal fight and more of that process versus just her doing it all on her own. Other than that, it was a really good book and definitely recommend it. Now, moving on to the 5 stars. My voice hurts already. I feel like I started doing the solo reviews to help me speed up this process, but you know, I don't really think it's doing much. But for the 5-star books, the first one is Life of Pi by Yann Martel. So this book I read for the 2000s readathon, and it was like a 3, bordering 4-star, probably more 4-star book until the end. The ending left my core rattled, and like I just sat there after it ended thinking about it and like trying to process how this book got flipped upside down so quickly, so fast, and yet so effectively. And it was just like, oh my goodness. So, and then I ended up afterwards watching the movie. The movie was really good as well. But this book, like, even though the whole time we're only in one scene, and that one scene is we're on this boat with this tiger, it's still so captivating. Even though, like, he's just talking about mundane things, about surviving and not dying. Like, it was just so good. It was never boring, which I would feel like that type of book would get boring at least a little bit, but it wasn't. And it was a good book, and then the ending made it 20 times better. Please go read this book. The next book that I read and gave 5 stars to was Other Words for Home by Jasmine Warga. This is a middle grade book about a young Syrian girl and her mother when they move to America to find refugee, to escape the turmoil that's in their country. And they move in with her uncle, and she kind of discovers America. And it was so good. Like, even though I enjoyed this book, I know I'm not going to be able to enjoy it as much as an Own Voices reader is going to enjoy it. Like, the fact that this book exists for young girls to see that they are not different, they are not weird, their culture is beautiful and they are beautiful, and that they belong here. Like, the fact that that message exists in the world is beautiful. Also, she was funny. She was funny. And I liked her perspective, and I liked that she was unapologetically herself. I did a review on this book as well, a solo review. Actually, the next 2 books I also gave solo reviews for, if you want to check them out. So the first one is Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. I don't know what I've been missing. Or I do know. I now know what I've been missing. So, before I read this book, I've had every single Elizabeth Acevedo book on my TBR. I just haven't gotten to them yet, you know? I was interested in them. All the premises sounded cool and exciting. And I was like, sure, I'll get to it one day. But now that I've read Poet X, I'm like, I need to get to all of them right now. I was a little intimidated by this being in verse. And so if you are too, don't be. Whenever I think of something being in verse, I think of the Odyssey and Beowulf and all those classics like that. It's not like that. It's amazing. Yeah, I gave a review for it. Definitely recommend it. I was missing out before I read this book, and so if you haven't read this book, you're missing out as well. And then the last book that I read was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So this book is one of the only YA fantasies that I've really enjoyed in a while. Like, most of the times, I enjoy YA fantasies, and, like, I enjoy them. Like Song of Wraiths and Ruins, they're not my favorite, but I'm glad I read them. But this one, I really enjoyed it. And, like, I can see why people get wrapped up in these fantasy books, you know? It makes sense now. But I just loved everything about this. Some things weren't my favorite, but those things didn't bother me much. And it's just a fun, lighthearted, like, type of read that you read in a day when it's raining outside and you have a hot chocolate next to you and you're snuggled up with a blanket and a dog or a cat or whatever. And it's just one of those books. I guess that's it for my September reading wrap up. I hope I made it bearable to watch. These are my favorite type of videos to watch, but I know they can be exhausting at times. So hopefully I made sense in everything and you kind of understood where my thoughts were, because half the time I don't even understand where my thoughts are. But yeah. Please let me know how many books you read in the month of September and what was your favorite book. My favorite book was probably either Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid or Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So yeah, let me know your favorite book. Let me know how many books you read. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more, because I have a lot of stuff planned and I'm super excited. So yeah. Thank you again. I feel like I've said thank you 20 times, but yeah, thanks. Hope you're having a great morning or evening whenever you're watching this, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, and I'm not gonna complain. What are you doing?